Welcome. My name is Dr. Shiva, and I was here last week. I'm an environmentalist, a MIT PhD scientist, an author, and an activist. In 1970, my parents left India. I grew up on a farm where my grandparents were poor, sustainable farmers long before Monsanto existed, long before it was in vogue to be organic. So you're looking at someone who actually knows what it means to be organic, has lived that life. About a year ago, I was in a movie with Pierce Brosnan called Poisoning Paradise. You guys should see it. I was a scientist who did 6 papers exposing Monsanto. And if you go to Whole Foods, you'll see a clean food certified seal that was created by me and my organization. And when I was 14, I actually invented the first email system, which saves, by the way, email saves 1.8 million trees per day. So you're looking at someone who's a green activist. However, I'm a scientist. I have 4 degrees. I'm trained in hydrodynamics, fluid mechanics, physics, which are the fundamentals of climate. There is no field called climate science. The fundamentals are physics. So I'm here to challenge you guys to something different, which is the history of this country grew up on freedom. Freedom to discourse and freedom to debate, that is the foundations of science. And from science you find truth, and from truth you find what the real problems are, and you can solve real solutions. Now when you look at the actual issues here, the Paris Accords, as Mr. Mosca pointed out, allows China to pollute another 11.7 billion tons of carbon. It allows India to pollute another 2 billion tons. So I'm about lowering pollution. So you tell me how the Paris Accords helps climate. It's anti-green. And let's talk about the actual, what's going on with climate. There are a lot of people, including Al Gore, who are waiting for carbon credits after 2030 to go up in price. People are going to become trillionaires off this. So if we want to talk about climate, it's about lowering pollution. It's about eliminating companies like Monsanto. It's about getting rid of plastic. It's about eliminating glyphosate and atrazine. Would you not agree? How many people would agree to that? It's not about playing a carbon credit game. And that's what this has become. So there's a lot of people here who do not do the science. First of all, CO2 level. CO2, by the way, is a nutrient. It's not a pollutant. Okay, greenhouse gases. Sulfur dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Lead is a pollutant. These levels are going up because of China's pollution. CO2 levels today are in a famine level as they were 300 million years ago. So fundamental, if you want to talk about science, what we need to recognize the scientific method says the experiments have to match the actual models. They don't do that right now. So the issue is, I'm for climate change. I believe climate change is taking place. I believe greenhouse gases cause climate change. I believe CO2, but the data shows that CO2 is not sensitive to what we're talking about, the temperature anomaly. There's other things taking place, and we need to lower pollution and get away from this Paris Accords nonsense. Thank you. I assume you're familiar with the Council of Trent, right? The decrees? What do you think about that? What they did to humanity?
So I'm a Protestant, not a Catholic. And as a consequence, we don't hold to those historic teachings, for example, the Council of Trent. So, to be honest, I haven't given it a lot of thought.
Well, the reason I ask that is, there's a bill called S-729. Are you familiar with it? That Schumer has sponsored? Well, I'd like to know what you think about this, because it says a bill to prohibit the use of funds to federal agencies, is to prohibit this, to establish panel, task force, advisory committee, or other effort to challenge the quote-unquote scientific consensus on climate change for any other purposes. Which means Schumer's trying to pass a bill that we can no longer have discussion, scientific discussion. I think that reminds me of the Council of Trent. I want to know what you thought about it, because, this is religion now. It's no longer science.
So
that's why I asked you about the Council of Trent.
Okay, so now I understand your question, and I don't disagree with it profoundly. I think really as a consequence of a very careful campaign launched by fossil fuel companies, our entire country has been caught up in what I would call a failed understanding of science. And my guess is, just listening to your comments earlier and your question now, is that you and I might be surprised, and everybody gathered here might be surprised, that you and I would have a lot more in agreement than we would in disagreement in terms of our understanding of science and the need for the pursuit of science ultimately to win out.
So you're against 729 then? You'd be
Well,
against it?
since I haven't read it, I'm not going to.
Yeah, it basically says to prohibit all scientific questions. And I think to Mike's earlier point about the IPCC, if I can just make one last point.
Please.
You know, the 250 scientists who gathered, this was the biggest, they do the reports I went through every page of the IPCC report. And you should read it, because the 250 scientists in 2013, I'll read some of the points they said. But basically they refuted everything, saying that these are the scientists saying climate alarmism is wrong. And in 2018, the smaller group came in, and I wanted you to understand what you thought about that, because I wanted to remind him, because he didn't know what IPCC was, because it is a big question. Because, well, this entire alarmism is based on that, and all the scientists reversed it. You're a scientist.
Those are the facts.